My name is Dave KIRK. I'm the Public Information Officer for Owensboro Public Schools, and I'd like to welcome everyone to Ms. Quartroki's classroom. They gave me the most difficult name to pronounce of all of our teachers here at Sutton. So thank you for allowing us to use her classroom. Her students today are enjoying a trip to the River Park Center, which is a great asset that I know many of our school districts get to enjoy. So we appreciate her letting us use the classroom, and Ms. Dana Johnson for allowing us to host this at Sutton. Thank you to all of our media partners that have come out today so that we can get our message out and just be a unified district together. I'll go ahead and introduce some of the gentlemen to my right. We have Mr. Matt Robbins with Davis County Public Schools. We've got Scott Lewis with Ohio County Public Schools. We have Kyle Estes with Hancock County Public Schools. Terry Hayes with McLean County Public Schools. Robert Davis with Muhlenberg County Schools. And of course, Dr. Nick Brake with Owensboro Public Schools. So kind of the order, what we'll do is each one of them have something to say, I believe, and I'll introduce them. They'll talk a little bit, and then at the end, we'll bring them all up here and open it for questions. So the first person I'd like to introduce today is Mr. Matt Robbins with Davis County Public Schools.
Well, good morning. And first of all, I want to say thank you to the media for working with us today to be present. I want to say thank you to my fellow superintendents in this region for being present here today and participating in this very important press conference. I want to say thank you to our school board members from Owensboro, Davis County who were able to make today's event. Appreciate each and every one of you being here. Ms. Brinkley, Roush with KEA, appreciate you also being here. And Mr. Artie Marks, appreciate you here as well. Our message today is purely focused on the profession of teaching and public education in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. But the real reason why that summons us together here today is a laser focus on our kids and their future, and for the generation of kids that will follow in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. We're stepping out of our school districts today to come together to talk about a very, very important issue that affects all of us. The focus of the press conference today is specifically on KTRS and CERS. While there are 8 pension systems in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, these are the 2 that are relevant to our employees, as they are all participants in either of those 2 systems. And why also that this matters essentially to every citizen and resident of our region as well as Kentucky. 3 key points that I want to emphasize here with you today. First of all, the quality of our teachers. Can we continue to attract and retain that most vital asset to our profession? Also, how this pension issue will affect the education of our children, not only today, but in the generations that would follow. And also the increased cost that must be weighed on taxpayers with the PFM report's recommendations as it is outlined so clearly and on public view. Our goal here today is to talk about and provide facts about the current pension system, concerns about some of the proposals referenced in the PFM report, and our vision for an appropriate, sensible solution and path forward. We desire to be an integral part of this conversation. The entire KRS system, that's all 8 pensions, is about $33 billion in debt. However, our teachers and our support personnel deserve a stable and sensible pension plan. Most importantly, the employees deserve a clear path forward that ensures that this is not a concern for them when they ultimately make that choice to retire. As this conversation takes place across the state, I first want to address some myths and misperceptions that may be floating around in the public eye. First, how is the Kentucky Teachers Retirement System funded? Well, I will assure you that teachers pay 13% of their salaries annually into the Teachers Retirement System. They've done this faithfully all along. Since 2008, the state has failed to pay the tune of $1.9 billion towards the unfunded liability in the pension system. This has had an enormous compounding effect when it's coupled with the assets that had to be sold by the Kentucky Teachers Retirement System. When you pull all that together, it's had a $3.8 billion impact on the teachers' retirement system. Obviously, that weighs heavy in the unfunded liability that we see today. But to be clear, that problem has spanned multiple years, multiple administrations, and of course, both political parties. Teachers today do not pay into Social Security. This is a very, very important point. They also cannot receive any Social Security benefits, either from a public job they may have held prior to or post-retirement, or from a spouse's benefit that was not even a participant at all in the retirement system. They are completely and totally and absolutely dependent upon teachers' retirement for their income. Teachers' retirement is a Social Security replacement plan. If we go back to 1930, when Roosevelt introduced Social Security, all across America at that point in time, the teachers, again, across America in each state had the choice to exempt teachers or include them. Kentucky continues to make that choice, and we think that's the choice that we should make moving forward. The average teacher in Kentucky retires with 30 years or more of experience. They retire at an average age of 59. They draw an average pension benefit of $38,000 per year. And again, please remember that's with no Social Security included. And so as I believe that any time that we do not agree with a solution that's proposed in the PFM report, I think it's inherent upon us to make sure that we include what that solution might look like. And so for our purposes, we support a shared responsibility solution where we work together, both as employees, employers, as well as in retirees as well, on what is best for Kentucky, and most importantly, what is best for Kentucky's kids. This approach worked successfully in 2010 to fix the health insurance fund, and it can work again. Employees, employers, and the state can work together towards a sensible, economically feasible solution that will result in the long-term solvency of TRS. The evidence is clear. Kentucky must undergo significant tax reform that results in more state revenue. This affords all people a better plan that costs less to support and maintain and supports sustainable growth in the state of Kentucky. Thank you.
Next up, from Ohio County, we will have Mr. Scott Lewis.
Morning. Matt touched on a few of these things, but let's talk now about what's being proposed. The proposal is to shift teachers' retirement to Social Security 401k plan. Why is this a bad idea from a financial standpoint? Since the 30s, when Social Security was created, teachers have always been excluded because TRS is more secure and less expensive than the Social Security program. The PFM report acknowledges that Social Security and the 401 contributions are more expensive than current TRS plan, and that's on page 16 of the PFM report. So that's a fine point to remember. Social Security has more risk to both Kentucky taxpayers and employees. Its unfunded liability is so much greater than that of TRS, 10 times as much liability. Social Security is already a stressed system with projections that will run out of money in 2034. It doesn't make any sense to add more people to Social Security payroll and escalate the depletion of those funds. Social Security is controlled by the federal government. The state would lose control, which further increases the risk to Kentucky taxpayers. Social Security is a permanent decision. Once in, you're never out. This reason alone should give us pause before rushing in and potentially making a mistake we can never rectify. We need to consider, does a new system create greater instability with lack of future teachers contributing and dependent upon the state to fund the plan, which will cost more money with no new funding sources proposed? And these are some of the facts that we feel like are important for people to know, because some of these are what's really getting everyone up in arms to start with. But, we do not think that these proposals are what's best for our teachers and retirees. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to share that with you all today. Thank you.
Next up, we'll have Mr. Kyle Estes, who of course is from Hancock County Public Schools.
Thank you, Mr. Kirk, fellow superintendents, ladies and gentlemen of the press, board members, guests. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and share our concerns. This is an important issue. If you think about some of the proposals that Mr. Lewis and Mr. Robbins have already outlined on the 401k system and the Social Security plan, there will be an impact on our youth. I think everyone here in the audience and to my right also would agree with that. Each of us know and understand the important resource to a student a teacher is in that classroom. Teachers are molding and developing the future of our children of the Commonwealth. We all know teachers do not enter the profession for the pay or the benefits. However, one major draw of the current system is the retirement. Helps us with retaining those teachers. Many of those teachers, I think Mr. Robbins alluded to, will work 30 plus years, and most of the time they're 59 years of age or older because of the incentive in the current system and obviously their love for our youth. Statistics show that for every $1 the teacher retirement system pays out, the economic benefit in Kentucky is $1.43. This statistic, coupled with a decline of the 89% of retired teachers that reside in the Commonwealth, will be compromised with the current proposals, as teachers will retire earlier and move to neighboring states to continue their profession. We will lose some of our best teachers, which will hurt kids and produce a negative economic impact at the same time. The proposed Social Security system for new teachers will make teacher recruitment more challenging in the future than it is right now. And each of these gentlemen to my right know that it's already a difficult task to recruit the very best. Without a quality retirement system for teachers, teachers' pay must be substantially higher for a profession to meet the profession of master's level requirement for comparable career paths. Sadly, this is a point that's not part of the PFM audit, and it's not receiving much discussion among our legislators. Further, for those individuals we are able to entice to the profession, I believe those teachers will now seek other opportunities at the midpoint of the career as the grass looks greener in other areas where they can receive greater compensation. The Commonwealth continues to make great strides in education, ranking as high as the top 20 in the nation by the Education Week 2016 Quality Counts report. Each person here, to my right, again desires to continue to improve and move Kentucky to the top of the charts in the nation. This cannot be done without the very best teachers. It is unfortunate that this conversation is about taking away benefits from teachers, because it should be about how we can provide greater incentives to retain and attract the very best to the field. Without quality people working with our youth, there will be an inevitable decline in the years to follow in every quality of life measure, including healthcare, recreation, service industries, emergency responders, roads, and infrastructure. Those risks to our society should be at the forefront of this issue. Thank you.
All right, next up from McLean County, we'll have Mr. Terry Hicks.
Thank you all for allowing us to be here this morning. Certainly appreciate our fellow superintendents, our board members, media, and the members of the press. The teacher retirement system affects all certified school employees. CERS, the County Employee Retirement System, is a pension plan for non-certified school employees such as secretaries, teachers' aides, food service, maintenance, and others. These individuals account for about half of the school district employees. These employees contribute 5% of wages to their retirement, with the employer contributing 19%. They also pay into and receive Social Security. CERS is better funded than most of the state retirement plans at 59%. Our position is to recommend separating CERS from the current KRS system going forward, a position that is also supported by leadership of other groups participating in CERS. Thank you.
Next up, from Muhlenberg County, we'll have Mr. Robert Davis.
Thank you. So what are we doing and what can you do? We hope that today's event illustrates the fact that we're on the same page. Superintendents and districts across the state are united on this issue. We're in communication with each other often. We talk to our elected officials. And we want to ensure that everyone understands that this issue is not limited to school employees or teachers or government workers. It goes far beyond that. We need everyone to understand that each and every person in the state of Kentucky, each taxpayer, will be affected by what's decided. Certainly the ones who reside in the districts represented here today. So what can you do? First, we ask you to be informed. Hopefully today helps with that. We ask that you call the Legislative Call Center at 1-800-372-7181. And we ask that you contact your elected officials with this message. We support a shared responsibility plan to sustain the Kentucky teacher retirement system. We do not support a Social Security 401k plan, and we support the separation and stability of CERS. Thank you.
Next up, we'll have from Owensboro Public Schools, Dr. Nick Brake.
Thank you, and I echo everybody's thanks, and again, my welcome to our district in Sutton today. I'm going to close today by talking about economic growth and the important role that education plays with economic growth. It is well documented that economic growth is spurred by investment in education. Study after study show the economic growth-education relationship and its impact on tax policy. These studies indicate that investments in K-12 education, higher education, and public infrastructure are the three most important decisions that a state can make for the economy of the state. States with the highest investments have the strongest economies. Money matters. Disinvestments and cuts at the state level, like the recent 17% cut that we're all trying to deal with, are hurtful, and they weaken the state economy. A lack of state investment in education is also pushing more and more of the burden to the folks in the back of the room, our local boards of education. They have to make difficult decisions that burden local communities and local school districts. There is a net positive effect on the local economies as a result of investment in education. But more than that, quality of living is directly impacted. Our communities in this region especially are blessed with outstanding public school districts. But we have to remember that schools are successful, kids are successful because of excellent teachers. We simply cannot afford to risk a future in which school districts are bankrupted by crushing financial liabilities, while at the same time risking an exodus of educators. Education is never a cost. It is an investment. Why does this matter? The answer is simple: because our kids matter. Thanks again to my colleagues and the fellow superintendents, and thanks to all of you for attending today. And I think our group is going to come out.
Yeah, what we'll do now, if everybody will kind of come up here, I would ask our media partners if you could ask your question as loud as possible so that we could pick that up. We are live on Facebook as well, thanks to DCPS and a couple students from DCPS. We appreciate you guys coming out so that we have a larger audience. We'll have several recordings of this as well. And I, of course, would like to thank Laura Wimstead as well, who helped put together a lot of this. She did a lot of the legwork, so want to give her some recognition. So again, if you'll ask your questions loud, we'll all be here. You can address whoever you want, and it's open for you guys whenever you're ready.
If you have no questions, this is just a great photo op. Yeah. You don't get the five of us together too often, so. Jim?
Would one of you unpack shared responsibility approach?
Yes. Okay, simply, let me refer to 2010, because that's when it happened, Jim, in Kentucky. And in 2010, we were dealt with a health insurance crisis, if you will. And so at that point in time, what was introduced was an additional percentage increase in the employee's contribution to TRS, the employer, which would be the boards of education, as well as the state. So each of us during that period of time and over a 6-year span of time contributed an additional 3% each towards the solvency of the health insurance fund. And so in context with the solution that we have here today, and I would be remiss to say that I left out of my comments earlier, that I'm thankful that the legislature this past session had made a choice to contribute the equivalent of about $500 million into the teachers' retirement system. So those numbers will improve. In this past year, we had a net 15% return on investments. So we should see a very nice increase in terms of the percentage there. But we feel like we've accomplished via a shared responsibility plan before an objective, and that was to make the health insurance fund solvent. And we feel like that's achievable again. In fact, we don't feel like there really are other options that we could entertain. The Social Security piece, as we talked about earlier, simply costs taxpayers more money, lesser benefit, and it also introduces more and more risk into the system. So that's an effect of 3 strikes that I would make into that comment.
And I would add on that, the Social Security piece is a bad deal for taxpayers. You just look at some of the states, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, there's been states all around the country that have gone down that road, and many have backed away from it or have wished they had not done it. So I think there's a track record there, and I think taxpayers just need to be aware, because it's a bad deal.
In the statements, you guys say that if it switches over to the 401k system, it will make the teaching profession, make it become less attractive. How else can switching that system make the job like teaching less attractive to anyone who wants to go into the field?
All right. Can I ask you to refine your question? I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
Oh, well, it's like you mentioned. I just got to get just to clarify, like how does it how does it hurt trying to bring more teachers into
Social Security.
Starting pay, no, 401ks.
Oh, 401ks with Social Security, that solution. Okay. Absolutely. The starting pay is certainly an issue, but what I would say there is that the total cost to the taxpayer, be it the match, the employer then has to make a match. So when you bring all that together, it's more costly. To the teacher, to the individual teacher, what I think is your question is how does it disadvantage the teacher? First of all, with Social Security, that increases the age issue, okay? So that it would be projected that we could have teachers teaching at 65 years old. We are in the youth business, okay? We teach children. And we know as we age, that affects our ability to deliver that level of service to our students. As an example, I talk about a kindergarten class where oftentimes you walk into a classroom, you'll see the teacher in the floor working with her students and reading to her students. That becomes a much more difficult challenge as that person gets older. Health issues, all kinds of different things start to compound for a teacher to be teaching at that age in the classroom. The other piece is just it's purely economics that Social Security and a 401k will result in a lesser benefit to teachers. So when it comes to the attractiveness package, all of a sudden we've lost a benefit, okay, that attracts people to the profession. But it's not only the recruitment piece, it's the retention piece, because we know that a number of folks, after they've worked in the teaching profession, or any profession for that matter, after they've been with us, 6 to 10 years, they start to look at other options. And the pension has been one of the things that have kept folks into the retirement system and kept them into teaching when otherwise they may have hopped out and went to a different route career-wise.
There's also some early evidence that this is going to be hurtful. This has been talked about for a couple of years. So this report, I think is really a culmination of a lot of rhetoric. And the deans of our colleges of education, our public universities, are already reporting about a 30% decline in people enrolling in teacher education programs. So that, in and of itself, the instability is going to create a glut for us to have to deal with in 3 or 4 years. I think that's only going to get worse.
Well, I'd like to add to that also right now that, some of our districts, and maybe every one of them, we're having trouble attracting quality teachers as it is. We have openings right now where we have positions that we can't fill. And we really feel like this is just going to make this situation worse. So, thank you.
If I could add to that, and Matt, he alluded to it, but if you really think about a 401k system, which is highly regarded in the private industry, and that's where most people are at, and they have Social Security to supplement that. But if you compare the pay to a profession that requires a master's degree, like is required of Kentucky teachers, the pay is dramatically lower for our teachers in the Commonwealth. So if we were going to do something like take away their defined benefits plan, the pay has to go up dramatically, and there's no discussion about how to increase the pay for teachers at this time. So no matter the solution that we come up with in the Commonwealth and the legislators craft, there's going to have to be more revenue. And that, to me, is really the issue. And what we talk about with the Social Security, going to the Social Security route, that's going to take even more revenue than what is required to fix the system with the shared responsibility approach that we were talking about.
Other questions?
All right, that will conclude our conference. Again, I appreciate everybody for coming up. And if you have any questions after, I'm sure these guys will stick around as well. So thank you guys for coming out. And again, thank you to Sutton for hosting us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.